Your catalog has thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, or even millions of assets harvested from across your data estate. Most of them have no description, no owners, no tags. You can't fix what you can't measure. One query gives you the full governance scorecard. We've watched governance teams run enrichment sprints for months, onboarding new domains, certifying critical tables, tagging sensitive assets, but with no way to measure how far they've come. They finish a sprint and still can't answer which domains are furthest behind, which asset types are blocking discoverability. Once you run this query, you'll have the baseline every enrichment effort should have started from. We're enriching metadata across a large estate, adding descriptions, assigning owners, applying tags, certifying critical assets. But we have no easy way to measure how far we've actually come. Without a completeness baseline, we can't identify which domains are furthest behind, which asset types are blocking discoverability, or whether our enrichment efforts are actually moving the needle. The Metadata Lakehouse turns our Atlan metadata into queryable SQL tables. In this walkthrough, we'll use it to generate a completeness scorecard by asset type and by domain, so we know exactly where our enrichment gaps are before we start our next enrichment effort. Inside of Snowflake, we've built out a query that looks at the completeness of our metadata on our assets. Here's what it measures. This completeness query measures 5 dimensions for each asset type: description coverage, tag coverage, certification coverage, ownership coverage, and custom metadata enrichment. Each one produces a percentage, the share of assets in that type that have the attribute set. The query is scoped by default to the asset types we're most concerned about for governance: tables, schemas, glossary terms, data domains, data products, and BI assets like Tableau dashboards and workbooks. We can add or remove asset types to meet our needs. When we run it, here's what comes back. The output provides a row per asset type with coverage percentages across all 5 dimensions. We look at column description coverage first. In most orgs, this is the lowest number on the board. If it reads 2 to 3%, that's a problem. Tags and certifications may tell a different story. If our team has been running playbooks for PII tagging or certification campaigns, we'll see that reflected here. This is our enrichment baseline. Every sprint, every source integration, every AI readiness initiative should start here. Here's why this matters beyond governance hygiene. AI context engines and source systems both consume this metadata. If your tables and columns have 3% description coverage and are missing tags, your AI tool is working blind. And any source system pulling enriched metadata from Atlan is getting an incomplete picture. This query is the diagnostic step before any enrichment program, any source push, any AI context build-out. It takes about 10 seconds to run. Now let's break it down by domain to see where the gaps are concentrated. A second query gives us the same picture, but instead of by asset type, it's sliced by data domain, a row per domain with an overall enrichment score that averages across tags, glossary term assignments, README coverage, and descriptions. This is particularly useful for decentralized teams that need to track enrichment accountability at the domain level. One row worth watching specifically is no domain assigned. That row captures all the assets in our state that haven't been assigned to any domain. It's both an enrichment gap and a governance signal. Those assets are entirely outside of our domain structure. This query is also flexible. If we're running an enrichment sprint focused on a specific domain or source system, the flexibility of the Metadata Lakehouse lets us narrow the scorecard to exactly what our team is accountable for. Since this is all done through SQL queries, we can even connect them directly to our BI tool of choice, allowing us to create up-to-date dashboards that track our enrichment and readiness. That's the full scope of what these queries can do. We now have a governance scorecard that tells us exactly where our metadata gaps are, by asset type and by domain. That's the starting point for any enrichment sprint, any source integration readiness check, and any AI context initiative. The gaps are no longer a guess. Run it, pick our priorities, and start filling them in. If you want to see how to use the Metadata Lakehouse to run impact analysis, understanding how changes move through your data estate, and making sure nothing you ship breaks a critical asset, that walkthrough is linked right below.